one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and good evening. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. Is there any public comment from the board?
Sure. I have two board comments. One is I attended a couple weeks ago an MRPC, or Montechusett Regional Planning Commission, ADA transitions meeting, and what they are encouraging the towns to do is to look at three criteria of how to become more ADA compliant in your open spaces or recreation spaces, your public rights of way, which are like your sidewalks, and then in your buildings. And I just wanted to comment, because both as a citizen and then as a selectman, I keep inquiring about maybe holding these meetings in a facility that is more ADA compliant that we already have, like the collaborative meeting rooms in our new middle high school. That building right now has collaborative meeting rooms that are empty. They are fully ADA compliant with the push-button doors, elevators, ADA compliant bathrooms, smart boards, no extension cords, and we can live broadcast, because I know we learned the details of that with the internet speed and the equipment we have. And so I'd really like, after going to that meeting, to encourage us not to look for long-term solutions to ADA compliance, but see if we have something available right now to help transition. And something like meeting in a space we already have is actually at no cost and yet makes us compliant. My other comment is about the Article 22 from town meeting. That's the land conveyance article that involves a land swap. Our last meeting, we went into executive session for that topic, and I'm pretty sure that cites Purpose 6. And moving forward, I would like to ask if we would do that topic in open meeting, because I don't know if we can really point towards a detrimental effect to doing so. That's all.
Yes, please.
The Lions Club Pancake Breakfast is tomorrow morning from 8 to 10:30 at the Eagle House Senior Center for $2. It's all you can eat, and there's many, many smiling faces, especially when the weather's good. So come on down. I also attended the grand opening of the Lunenburg Pollinator habitat at 123 Hollis Road on Sunday morning. It was a sweet and delicious ceremony, and the Pollinator habitat has a beautiful sign that Ken Jones did by hand, and it's a butterfly, conservation land, and then a butterfly. It's beautiful. And there are sweet paths with particular plants that attract pollinators, and all of the plants are labeled even, so you know which is which. It only takes a few minutes to walk around. I encourage everybody to go to 123 Hollis Road to check it out. Thank you.
Is there any public comment from the public? Please. Please. And give us your name and address.
Yeah. The use of single-use plastic bags in town. I have reached out to some of you, I think. I came across data a few months ago that was daunting. I had known the data before. I think we're all aware of the environmental effects those plastic bags have, from production to disposal. So the single-use plastic bags, but they're about 5% recycled. And yeah, oh, I teach piano. Yeah, thanks. So I am here because I have done some research and found that even though there are actually many countries in the world who have already banned these bags, in the States, there are only a handful of states that have managed. California, I think Hawaii, Washington, D.C. So from what I understand, Massachusetts has been trying to make progress in this matter for a decade, and from what I understand, it's still not happening. There are over 80 towns in Massachusetts who have been able to make use of this ban, and I actually took the liberty and typed it up, and I gathered 10 signatures in the hope of perhaps as a citizen's petition for the town hall. I don't know who to give it to. The only thing that's not on here is the article number and the dates of proposition, so January 1st or I don't know.
So what do people use when they don't use plastic bags?
So this reusable, either heavy duty, so these are the 2.5 millimeter plastic bags we're talking, either heavy duty plastic or the plastic bags that are everywhere in Hannaford's. The little bags that don't have the handle that you put the meat and the tomatoes in, or that farmers market provide, or Dick's Market, those are still okay. The proposition is that when you put your peppers and your tomatoes in those little bags, they don't have to go into another plastic bag. Or when you put your meat into a plastic, it doesn't have to go into yet another plastic bag. These plastic bags are manufactured, and they are based on crude oil, billions of gallons of crude oil per year. There's tremendous cost in it. There's harm to the environment, ocean life. Petroleum doesn't break down. It takes hundreds of years to break down. So I actually, I don't know how much time I have, but I actually contacted Costello, the garbage company, because I was curious to find out where our recycling and garbage gets taken. And I found out that there's a transfer station in Westboro where the recycling gets sorted out. I asked to make an appointment, but they don't have them throughout the summer. I will call them back in November. I also found out that our trash, after the transfer station, gets taken to 5 or 6 different other places, either landfills or incinerators. The Harvey person that I talked to was very, very busy, and so he couldn't give me, I think there's a place in Haverhill, an incinerator. When these plastic bags get incinerated, they create dioxin, but mostly the trash from this town ends up in landfills around here. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Please. Please.
Hello, I'm Marilyn Talley. I live at 172 Peninsula Drive, and this is Carolyn Finch. You probably know her as the school nurse. And I wanted to just let everybody know that we are going to have the Stillman Fair again this year. It's our 4th year. It's going to be on September 8th. And again, we have support of the police, fire department, and DPW, and always from the selectmen too. We've had a lot of support. We are offering the selectmen again a volunteer table if you want to use it to try to entice volunteers to sign up for different committees. Please let us know. You can get in touch with me if you'd like to. This year, so this is our 4th year, every year we have had the fair benefit something different in town. It started off with the food bank, and the last 2 years it's been the Lions Club charities. This year we wanted to go a little different route, and one of our main supports this year is going to be a new initiative that's proposed by the school department and will benefit everybody in Lunenburg. And Carolyn is here to talk a little bit about that. I think you're going to be very excited to hear about it. And she also gave you a pamphlet that tells you a little bit about it. So I'll let Carolyn take over.
Hi. So the initiative that we're trying to fundraise money for that's coming through the Wellness Advisory Committee for the schools is this William James College Interface Referral Service. And it's basically a referral service for mental health services. So currently, the way that our system works, it's very difficult to navigate if you'd like to get a referral for any type of a mental health issue or need that you may have, anxiety, depression, family issues. It's extremely difficult. You make several phone calls. It's insurance-based, it's provider-based, and oftentimes people get so frustrated with the system that they give up and choose less well options, self-medication, self-harm, etc. So This William James College Interface Referral Service is sort of an answer to that. And it's a service that we can purchase for the entire town, not just the school district. And it's a service that does all that legwork for you and creates a match from their database. So if you are somebody in need of services, anybody in the town of Lunenburg, if we purchased this, could make a call, speak with a mental health clinician, have an intake, they get all your information, and then within 2 weeks, on average, they're usually able to get you into an appropriate referral with a provider that meets your needs. They follow up with you on a consistent basis until you're completely satisfied that your needs are being met. So I know that the town of Leominster has this. A lot of other towns in our community, close to our community, have also started to purchase this service. We did have a person from the Interface Referral Service come and speak to us at the Wellness Advisory Committee and explain the whole process. It was well agreed by everybody there that it would be, worthwhile for the town if we could do it. I did provide just a fact sheet on it, so you'd have more information that you could look at your leisure. But I'm always available if you have any questions at any point about any parts of what the service is.
Where is William James College, Inc. located?
I think it's in Newton. I'm not 100% sure.
And when you make a call, where are the people that pick up the phone?
I believe in Newton, if that's where the college is. I'm not exactly sure where it is.
So it's totally within Massachusetts?
Oh, yes. Oh, it's all Massachusetts. It's Massachusetts providers, and it's in Massachusetts. The Interface Referral Service started at the college with a grant at one point, and that's how it's associated with the college. And that's also one of the ways that they're able to keep their costs down, because they use mental health providers and some of their students that are master's prepared clinicians as well for the intake part of the process. So I believe it's in Newton, but I'm not 100% sure where it is.
And have you spoken to the people in Leominster that use the service?
Yes, and they're very happy with it, and have already seen great utilization of the service by residents in the town, students and residents as well.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? Okay. Our 7:05 appointment is a public hearing. I'll read the hearing notice. The Lunenburg Licensing Authority will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, August 7th, 2018, at 7:05 p.m. at Town Hall, 17 Main Street, 2nd floor, Lunenburg, Mass. On the application submitted by Golden Pyramids, Inc., doing business as Sean Patrick's, license 00001-RS-0636, located at 494 Electric Avenue, Lunenburg, Mass., for the transfer of a license and change of manager. The premises is described as a one-story concrete building with 2 entrances, exits on Electric Ave, and 1 entrance exit on Pierce Ave, containing a dining room, bar room, kitchen, boiler room, and storage room. Board of Selectmen, Lunenburg Licensing Authority. I believe we're also going to consider a common vic and a weekday entertainment license. Is there someone here representing Golden Pyramid? Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Peter Barberi. I'm an attorney with Fletcher Tilton. My office is located in Framingham, although our main office is in Worcester. With me this evening, Fayez Mata, who's the president, director, and majority stockholder of Golden Pyramids, which is under agreement to acquire Sean Patrick's. Mr. Flanagan is here as well. So we have requested a transfer, as was noted, of the all-alcoholic liquor license. Mr. Mata is a resident of Leominster. As I said, he's a majority stockholder of the new company. The new company will lease out to Golden Pyramids as well. Mr. Mata is TIP as well as crowd certified. However, it's not his intent to be the bartender and bouncer of the establishment. His intent is to be the full-time, 60-plus hour a week management officer, taking care of all aspects of the business. The premises that you see now and the operations that you see now will essentially remain the same from the viewpoint of the operations, both entertainment, food, hours, all those aspects will remain the same. The intent being as well is to retain employees that are there. So what you see now is what you see when Mr. Fayez and Golden Mirror takes over the site. No change in the operations, no change in the physical structure. The seating capacity remains the same as previously permitted.
Any questions or comments from the board?
When will this take place?
The sale, as you would anticipate, is contingent upon all the transfers, so assuming it goes through in the next 30, 45 days, the closing would be within a week or 10 days after receipt. Yeah.
Maybe a hair earlier.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's right. Well, and the ABCC for ultimately
We're the
sign
easy
off.
part. The application and all the information was sent out in advance, and I don't have any questions. I'd make a motion that we approve the...
Party motion.
That's
Can I ask if there's anyone here that wants to speak for or against this application? Seeing none.
I would make a motion that we approve the alcohol transfer for Sean Patrick's as outlined in the hearing notice and the application.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
No, thank you. Not being totally familiar, so we also had the common victuals. We get that one where set to go as well as the entertainment.
Do a separate motion on that one.
I would make a motion that we approve the common victualler and entertainment licenses. Weekday entertainment license as submitted.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Congratulations and good luck.
Good luck to you.
And he hopes to see you there shortly.
Okay. Our 7:10 public hearing is for Settlers Crossing. And let me read the hearing notice there. The Lunenburg Licensing Authority will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, August 7, 2018 at 7:10 p.m. at Town Hall, 17 Main Street, 2nd floor, Lunenburg, Mass. On the application submitted by Settlers Crossing Enterprises Incorporated, doing business as Settlers Pub, for the transfer of license number 00045-GP0636, located at 994 Northfield Road, Lunenburg, Mass. The premises are described as a one-story golf clubhouse with an outside patio and the first 6 holes of the golf course. Board of Selectmen, Lunenburg Licensing Authority. You folks have been here before, and I apologize, but we are now
Appreciate the time.
we are now clear that we are actually transferring the license as opposed to the transferring the ownership, and
Correct.
and we have all the paperwork
Right.
in there that we would expect. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, we appreciate the business from the local people and so forth. And again, as I said the last time, I think we're good partners to the community also.
Okay, is there anybody here that wants to speak for or against this application? Any questions from the board?
Consistent with our votes in the past to achieve what we want to achieve tonight, I make a motion that we approve the transfer of license as submitted.
Second.
Any further discussion?
And my motion also includes the change from seasonal to annual class license.
Thank you. Thanks.
Amend second.
We asked some prayers for better weather, too. Thank you for your time.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hopefully we won't have to ask you to come back again.
Well, I'm getting good.
All righty. Our 7:15 appointment is for a common victular weekly entertainment and jukebox and auto amusement license for AAG, doing business as Kindred Spirits at 324 Electric Avenue, Unit Number 4.
So I think these are like the last two things, other than the state approval, that we need for Mickey's Kindred Spirits.
Okay. Now, let me just pull up the... Does the board have any questions or comments?
Nope.
Okay, this is not a public hearing, but does anybody here want to say anything for or against?
I would make a motion that we approve the common victualler, weekday entertainment, jukebox, and auto amusement license as submitted in the applications.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Good luck.
Good luck.
Okay,
Back on time.
we're back on time. This second. Our 7:20 appointment is an update on the license status for the Bootleggers. Mr. Morrison here. Nope.
Someone was supposed to come.
Okay, well, we'll check in later and see if someone does arrive. Now we're 5 minutes ahead of schedule. So we are going to, at 7:25, we're going to interview candidates and vote to appoint a Parks Commission with the Parks Commissioners. There is, however, one question. It was brought to my attention by one of the candidates that in the posted legal notice, the wording states that the Board of Selectmen and Park Commission will accept applications from interested persons through July 31st. The charter reads that it will be posted for a minimum of 10 days from the posting. One of our two applications was received after July 31st. In fact, it was received on August 1st and forwarded to the Selectmen's office on August 2nd. Does anybody believe that's a problem in the posting for this position?
So what does the charter require?
A minimum of 10 days from the posting, and the posting was July 19th. But the actual legal notice, both in the paper and the one that was posted, says the Board of Selectmen and Park Commission will accept applications from interested persons through July 31st. Now, I was surprised that we would have a through date. It would seem to me that applications are open until you fill the job.
Yeah,
That's unusual, isn't it?
both candidates made it onto the agenda, so I think the goal of putting a timeline on it might have been to get it on an agenda in a timely manner, but with the desire to get people involved, I'd hate to say no on a technicality like that.
Anybody else want to weigh in or make a suggestion? I would be inclined to go ahead.
I think as long as the notice period has gone on, that you have to have at least the 10 days, and if that's gone past, then I think we're covered as far as the charter, and the charter supersedes other things. So I think we're okay.
Okay. I'm going to move forward then. So our 7:25 agenda item is to interview candidates and vote to appoint in conjunction with the Park Commission. And is the chair and the other member of the Park Commission here? You want to call your meeting to order? Okay. And we have in our packages talent bank forms from each of the candidates. I would suggest that we ask them to come up and tell us why they want to be on the Parks Commission. Do one of you want to go first?
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Susanna Jewell, 985 Mass Ave. I'm fairly new to paying attention to town government, a little over a year now. I moved here in 2012. I just sort of have gotten the bug of the town government. I've been paying attention a little bit now, and I feel like I just want to get in and get involved in some way, and I feel like parks would be a good fit for me. I have a landscape architecture degree, and I am the co-owner of a landscape contracting company, and I understand the importance of open space and recreational land and how important it is to the community. I spend all my time with my two kids, ages 10 and 5, outside. We were at Wallace Park this week, and we were at Lake Whalum twice this week, once to swim and once for the cardboard boat races. I just see these open spaces in public land as important as our town libraries and our town hall and our public buildings. So, do you have any questions for me?
Any questions?
Do you see any challenges or opportunities with the current status of parks in town of Lunenburg?
Just in going to Lake Whalum this week, parking could be addressed over there. I guess that's all I can think of right now. That was a big one, though. There was cars everywhere and kids everywhere, and seems to need to be addressed.
When we appoint somebody to fill an elected position, it's till the next election. Would you intend to run in the next election as a public?
I would, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Thanks for volunteering.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
The other candidate come forward? Does the Parks Commission have any questions? Nope. Okay.
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. Everybody just about in this room probably knows who I am. Very involved in town government for a lot of years. Elected official for 7 going on 8 years. Been very involved in other committees as well as the one I'm on right at the moment. Especially spent the last almost 2 years attending parks meetings, getting to know how the commissioners felt about the needs for the town. And one of the key things that they convinced me of, I went in thinking that we catered to sports and only sports, and that we really didn't need any more space for organized sports. But they have convinced me that there is a shift in the wind to other types of sports other than baseball, and the commission is looking at starting to address that. And have a couple of ideas myself. Been in town all my life, so I know every area of town and what's got potential for this expansion and or transition. In my professional life, I've been in manufacturing for many, many years at many different levels, a lot of it in either middle management or management, working with developing budgets, taking care of structures and physical plants, keeping track of needed maintenance and making sure it gets done, getting quotes for that work, procuring parts, so on and so forth. So I'm very comfortable with working up costs for projects and things like that. And I see a lot of need in town now for municipal space for the general taxpayer or citizen to recreate in. We've transformed almost all of our open parks into sports venues, and there's a desperate need for open space for recreating as just a park area. I don't know if there's any other questions.
Any questions for Mr. Passio?
Oh, it's the same question. Other than the 2 areas that you talked about as far as non-playing space and different organized sports space, are there any other challenges or opportunities that you see the parks could use at this point?
I think, as has started in the last 12 months or so, keeping a closer handle on the money budgeted for parks and making sure that the commission comes up with projects that are not only appropriate but affordable and improve our parks step by step. We've seen some degrading of some of the parks. I won't put any blame on anybody at this point. Many people know my feelings about where budget money has gone, but I think those are the areas that need to be worked on very closely, along with, at some point, getting policies and procedures, which they've done a great job with in the last 18 months, but continue that process.
The other question I have, since you are on elected position now, and this is an elected, you'd have to choose between the two. The assumption is that you would be resigning from the Board of Health at that point.
There are actually 3 possible scenarios, and I checked this with Town Council a week ago Monday. Because this is an appointed elective position, his determination was that if I chose to, I could stay on both the Board of Health and the Commission until the next election. So there is that choice. The other choice I see is if somebody comes forward and wants to get on Board of Health before that, I would immediately resign. Or if it's insisted and necessary, I'd resign tonight. And I'd definitely run in May, because I really want to make a move.
Any other questions? I would accept a nomination for position on the Parks Commission.
When that's with the park, this is a
That's right.
joint meeting. I would actually look to the Park Department just for some input.
Come on up here, Karen. Thank you.
So we met last week, or the week before, one of the weeks, and we actually met with both of these folks beforehand. So the reason we didn't really have any questions tonight is because we asked them last week, and they were both equally qualified.
Yeah, I'm just happy we have 2. So this is a great thing. I think each one brings a certain skill set to the table, and I think just getting anybody to help, the heavy lifting with parks and other things that come up in town, I think is great. We're just happy to have people get involved.
Now, for the benefit of the people in the audience, the Park Commission has 3 members.
We're a 3-member board, and our 3rd member resigned about a month ago. He hasn't been with us since earlier this spring, so he officially resigned last month.
Okay, thank you.
We typically meet the 3rd Thursday of the month.
And we are super flexible on that, though. He said that.
At the DPW office.
When was the last
We've
time
all
we
got
met
kids
there?
in sports as well and other avenues, so try to make it. But we meet pretty regularly.
Yes, at least once a month.
Yeah.
But let me explain how this works. I would accept a nomination, assume it's seconded. I would ask for other nominations, assume they're seconded, and then based on those nomination or nominations, we will all 7 vote, and the candidate who receives the majority of the 7 votes is the person who's elected or appointed until the next election. So I would accept a nomination for position of Parks Commissioner.
I would nominate Susanna Jewell for the position of Parks Commissioner.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any other nominations?
I nominate Dave Passios for Parks Commissioner.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll take them in the order they were nominated. So all those in favor of Susanna Jewell, you have 1 vote in the affirmative, and I'll make it a roll call so that we're all clear. Mrs. Menard?
This is for
Susanna.
No.
Yes. Yes.
Yay?
Aye.
Yay?
Yes.
Okay, Mrs.
Hooray.
Adams. Sounds great. Mrs. Leck?
Yes. Aye.
Mr. McQuaid?
No.
Mr. What is your name?
Ebersol.
Ebersol.
Yes.
And yes for myself. So we have elected Susanna Jewell
Appointed.
by
Appointed.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5
5.
to 2.
There you go.
Okay?
Great, thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you both for your interest. You can.
Make a motion to adjourn? Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right. Our next agenda item is appointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals, but I'm going to ask that we go down to the resignation from the Zoning Board of Appeals so that we have a position to appoint to. In your packet, you will notice that there is a resignation letter, and I won't read it because it has to do with some medical reasons, but Mr. Bob Cato has announced his intention to resign, and I would accept the motion to...
I would move that we accept the resignation of Bob Cato.
Second.
Any discussion?
We'd just like to thank Mr. Cato for his hard work on the ZBA. That's an important board. It's a lot of work, I'm sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Now moving back up, we have an appointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and in your packet, you'll see there are two ballot bank forms, one for a member and one for an associate member. So let's take the member first. I notice David Blatt is here. Forward. How are you, Mr. Blatt?
Very good.
Can you tell us who you are and why you want to be on the Zoning Board of Appeals?
Dave Blatt, 411 Goodrich Street. Basically, I've been an associate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals for several years now. I thought it was a great experience, gave me a chance to learn about the board, understand the board, the importance thereof. Actually got to participate in many discussions and vote whenever they needed a member. I've decided that it's time to put the thing in to be a full-time, and enough of this associate, and it's time to be full-time and make myself a commitment for every time they need me, as they say.
Any questions, Mr. Blatt?
Now, I think it's a great way to move people into positions, to have associate memberships. I think
Especially on a board that's as technical and as detailed as that one, I think it's...
And, thank you for serving as an associate, because, you didn't always get to vote, but you had to always be there, so, I mean, that takes almost more effort, it seems.
Yes.
Now you're going to be in the big chair.
And by the way, I agree. The associate was a great experience because you did get to ask questions. Your opinion counted to the board, and I thought it was a great way to actually learn before you had a chance, before always voting type of thing.
Right, because it's an important position, and it's very mean, it has a lot of effect on the town, the way you vote.
Now you tell me that.
Will this have any impact on your duties in the Green Task Force?
No, I think actually the Green Task Force, after we got our grant, it's pretty clear sailing for us. We're just looking forward to the next round of grants and bringing to you guys the next ideas for saving some money. Oh, I'm sorry, saving energy.
And money.
Yes.
I would make a motion that we appoint David Blatt, 411 Goodrich Street, for a term to expire June 30th, 2022, to the Zoning Board of Appeals as a full member.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you for your efforts.
Thanks.
Now that there's a vacancy on an associate member.
That's right.
Yeah.
We have a town bank form from Patrick Callahan. Is Mr. Callahan here? Sir.
Patrick Callahan, 24 Beale Street. Get that out of the way. I guess Mr. Blatt set the stage for why I thought the associate position was a really awesome spot for me. So I guess I won't explain any of that because he just did that. About me, I've been in the trade since I graduated in 2003, and so I know my way around a lot of the ins and outs of planning and prints for construction, so that stuff all makes sense to me, and I figured the associate position would be good for me because I've no experience in town government, so figured it was a good way to get myself in and see what it's like, and I'm pretty excited to do it.
Have you attended any ZBA meetings?
I have not. I've just kind of done a lot of reading on it, and I've actually met with Mr. Gravel, is he the chair, I believe? And he seemed like a really nice guy to work with, so that just added to that I should definitely do it.
Now, as an associate, do you attend every meeting? How does that work, really?
Yes. Yes. I mean, I would, anyway, even if I didn't have to. So.
And can an associate member, if there's not enough quorum for the regular, can they step in that place for the entire, if they're there for the entire hearing?
That was how I understood it?
Yes.
Okay.
As long as they've been to every meeting and been a part of...
On that particular item, yes.
On that particular item.
Yes.
Oh, so that's cool.
Yes. Great. Thanks for volunteering.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
I would make a motion that we appoint Patrick Callahan, 24 Beale Street, for a term to expire June 30th, 2021, as an associate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I think I'll just recuse myself. I don't know where you draw the line with family members, but it's my brother-in-law.
Oh, okay.
You should let her say everything.
Unless it's a deciding vote, and then I'll find out the rules.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we have 4 affirmatives and 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you very
for
much.
having me.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
You can start memorizing the zoning code now.
While we're on appointments, we have a reappointment as a clock winder for John Lynch. Is John here? No. Okay.
I would make a motion that we reappoint John Lynch, 453 Page Street, for a term to expire June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Lynch.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
It was a timely appointment.
All right, so now our 7:35, so we're not that far behind, is our earth removal permit renewal update discussion. And who's going to walk us through that?
I would ask the building commissioner, I guess, would lead the discussion on this. There's some memos in your packet from the building commissioner.
Okay.
What's it called?
Earth removal permits. It's
All right. Where am I? I'm in the wrong place.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Board. As you've indicated, today's day to talking about the renewal of the earth removal permits. We currently have 2 businesses that have earth removal permits. One is Keating and one is Powell. There was 1 permit on Powell, which is on the Lemonster Shirley Road, that the board did not renew last year, with the stipulation that they provide a closure plan, and I believe the engineer's here tonight to talk about that plan. One of the things, when we met with the engineer, that I think would be appropriate for him to discuss is that it was discovered that they did not just limit their earth removal to where the permit was granted, but also went onto an adjoining property, and there are no permits for that property. So I think it'd be appropriate for the board to consider that. The second one of Powell's permits is on Goodrich. There's a 16-acre parcel there where the board at their last meeting said that they were to provide you with a closure plan for that portion of the lot that was completed. There was maybe about an acre of area where they could remove more material. As of this date, they did not provide you a closure plan. They've just asked for it to be renewed. It would be my recommendation that the board consider whether or not the permit should be renewed at all. Maybe it's time for it to expire and just order the closure plan and provide a time period for it. Again, that's something the board can consider with it. As it relates to Keating, the Keating has about 700 acres worth of earth removal permits out there. When the board last met, there were several conditions that they had placed on the permit. One was that they provide a plan that shows where all the earth removal permits were. One of the problems when I started researching it, it was literally impossible to know where each one was. They weren't always tied to parcels. And sometimes parcels had multiple permits on it. They weren't any meets and bounds. They were just sort of like over yonder, that's where we're going to remove the material. One of the things they were required to do was provide a plan that kind of consolidated, and I believe tonight they're going to provide you with that plan. It's my opinion that that plan should be accepted. And that will help us in the future, or help the board in the future, know exactly where those permits were. The other thing they were supposed to do is provide an engineering report to the board that shows where the status of all the permits were. In the last month, I met with Keating, one of the representatives, and they indicated to me as part of their renewal, they were not going to renew 2 of the permits. One of them was on the corner of Lemonster Shirley and Reservoir Road. It's where their office is. Their office is obviously there. It's paved, there's landscape, and I thought that was an appropriate place that they should not renew it. The second one, there is also an earth removal permit that the only way to get to the location of land is go into the town of Shirley, down a fire road, basically a dirt road that goes through the woods to this area in the back that's up next to Lake Shirley. Since that permit was issued, by the way, there's no materials been removed from that site. It's just the same as it was the day that the permit was issued. But there's been a lot of residential development back in that area. There are houses that are right adjacent to where this earth removal would take place. Initially, the discussion was with Keating that they were going to not renew that permit. I thought that was appropriate for that site, so there would be 2 permits that didn't. I found out today that Keating came in and now says they want all the permits. So the board has to consider whether it's appropriate. But I will tell you that they haven't provided any engineering to support any of the status of the permits. If they had my suggestion to you was to accept the two sites that they weren't going to renew, and I thought that was a good faith effort of trying to get a good handle on it. Where in the future we could take one of those, one of the areas where there are permits, and then go ahead and get a more detailed engineering, but only do it on one, because some of those parcels like over 100 acres, and there'll be a lot of engineering. I said, let's get a plan ready for that. But since then, like I say, they withdrew they just want renewals. If I had been aware of that when I wrote my recommendation, what I would have said was let's not renew, or I would recommend to the board not remove multiple permits, because they were required to give you a plan. They haven't given you anything. All they want is renewals. So again, my suggestion is not to renew the 2 that they originally suggested they wouldn't, and that the board look at possibly other locations where the permits not be renewed, because we don't know how much material they've been removed, how close to the groundwater they are. I can tell you one of the permits that I'm aware of, they're actually 30 feet below, or approximately 30 feet below, the elevation that the board approved. So they've already in violation of those permits. So I think that, in my opinion, the board may want to consider a more tougher approach with them. Again, that's all it is my suggestions. It's the board's decision what they want to do. I can answer any questions.
Our plan was to do normal, if there's such a thing, to do our regular renewals of earth removal permits tonight, and then to have a workshop next week on any policy issues that we needed to discuss. What I'm going to suggest, is it possible for us to take these by applicant and go through the various permits that are either on the books or requested, and get your recommendations on each of them, and if any of them require a policy discussion, we can defer them till next week. But if we can make decisions on any this evening or hear from the applicant this evening, that would be my preference. Is that acceptable to the board?
Makes sense. The permits don't expire until the end of August, I believe. Correct. August 31st, so we still have additional meetings if we need to.
So can we go by applicant and kind of walk us through those that are pretty cut and dried, and those that require either work on the part of the board or the part of the applicant?
May I ask a clarifying question? When you talk about the 2 permits that you would suggest that not be removed, one is where the office is, and the other one is right next to Lake Shirley.
That's correct.
Okay, those are the 2 that you were suggesting we not renew.
I would recommend they not be renewed. Again, because of where the office is, there's a parking lot, it's landscaped. It makes no sense to me that there's earth to be removed there. The other one is so close to residential properties in the lake, I feel that that would be, could be detrimental possibly to the lake as to the residents. In the future, one of the problems with our earth removal permits, I mean, some of them were issued over about approximately 60 years ago. 60 years ago, Lunenburg was a different place. There were no houses in a lot of these locations. The equipment to use to remove it was different. Things have changed. And I don't know if our conditions really reflect what's necessary to protect the neighborhood and know what's happening out there. We don't know. I mean, when I went out there, I thought, oh, I know exactly where this is. Then when I back and looked at some of the plans that were provided, I was like, whoa, that's not what I expected.
And another clarifying question. You mentioned one spot where they're 30 feet below where they're supposed to be going. Is that a different permit? And are you recommending that I would think that you wouldn't renew that one either if they're in violation.
again, that's the board's decision. That one is actually located adjacent to the town of Lancaster. There is a large quarry at Lancaster, and this site kind of is the beginning of the...
Is it along Route 70?
It is...
That part of Fort Pond Road?
Fort Pond Road.
That's not 70 until you hit Route 2.
It's on the west side of Fort Pond Road where there's a gate. You couldn't see where this is. You wouldn't know that what was removed unless you physically went on the site, and the site is posted, and I don't recommend anybody go back there. You know, it's a construction zone, would be dangerous. It's back in that area. You wouldn't know that unless you, and even now, when I look at it, I don't know because of the way it's set. I can look at a plan, but when you go out there in the field, it's this huge area. I can't tell exactly what everything is. Now, the only reason I bring this to the board's attention, I think it's maybe reasonable to remove material there, but what this to me reflects is that Keating has not necessarily always reviewed their permits and tried to keep up with them. So I don't know what conditions have been met and which are not being met. And they, at this point, have made no attempt to provide the board with engineering reports.
Thank you.
So since we're on Keating, I would suggest we start with that one.
That's fine.
So the question, based on your letter, last year we renewed it and said that they work with the building inspector, review all permits and make adjustments as appropriate by combining parcels, permits, and they provide an engineer report as required by the commissioner, as well as a closure plan for parcels that be no longer utilized. So you believe that there's a plan that they've identified where everything is?
Yes,
that part.
I believe that's been submitted to the board. No, that's Paul. Is it?
I can't get to that. I can't get to that stuff. Can you help me?
Oh, this is just the maps.
This is the plan. This is a plan that was submitted that go closer to allowing us to identify the permit to the property. And this plan does a pretty good job of that. So I feel that they have clearly complied with that component.
So your other suggestion is that whatever permits we do approve, that they be extended until December 31st to allow engineering plans to be provided.
I made that recommendation when they had submitted their renewals and indicated that they would, there's actually two properties. This one and the property up here. They indicated they wanted to withdraw those two.
Right. And they've since resubmitted. But if we didn't consider those two, you would be okay, I mean, granted we make the decision, but you would be okay if we approved all the rest till December 31st with the understanding there needs additional work needs to be done.
Yes. That is, when I wrote that letter based on that, that was my recommendation.
Okay.
Another question. Were they supposed to have engineering drawings now? What did they say when you asked them? What's the reason they don't have them?
They're here tonight. That might be a good question for them. Okay. They didn't give me a very good answer for it. They've been working on it. You know, what we agreed in our last meeting was that if the board approved, as was then requested, that we would take one of the parcels that are remaining, that they do a more in-depth review of it, look at what's been removed, how much material is left there to be done, the depth of groundwater, all those kind of considerations that should be part of an annual review of that license. We indicated it would be better, rather than doing 700 acres, maybe just do one of the permits so that we have a blueprint as to how to move forward.
That sounds reasonable.
How many acres is number 29, the Lake Shirley one? Do you know? I can't open that map in here for some reason.
One is 28 and 29. Those are the two that I would recommend not to review.
Okay. How many acres are those sites?
They're not very big. I don't know off the top of my head. Less than 20, I think. Less than 20 acres of the 700.
Okay.
I think it would be good to hear from Keating's representative.
Is there anybody here from Keating? Sir.
Hello, I'm Mo Langlois, and I'm seeking $5 million for 10% of my company. Wait a minute, these are my Shark Tank notes.
You are a millionaire.
Sorry. I want to just kind of ease it a little bit, okay? So I'd like to address the comments that were made here. Certainly, we did have some communication with Mr. Rhodes, and our intent initially was to offer up those two. Unfortunately, one of the things that we've found out is, and I guess we already knew this, is we're just we have mineral rights for those properties, and we're just a caretaker for these permits, and it's really not our decision as a company, PJ Keating, to be able to offer up what we will and will not, because as I said, we just lease mineral rights in those properties. So it was recommended to us that we continue as we have, and you know, have a discussion with the board about it. I'd like to kind of just, once again, he's kind of opened the door, so I want to talk about. So there's a letter that we received December 5th. It was dated December 5th, which was the results of the November 21st meeting. And there was 4 bullet points on it. The first bullet point was to renew the applications until 8/31 of 2018, which here we are again. The second was an engineered report plan shall be submitted to the Board of Selectmen by PJ Keating for each permit site, which shall include any materials remaining to be removed and closure plan for each site. Now, when we met with Commissioner Rhodes, we hadn't had that complete yet. But what I'd like to do here is submit to the board and to the Commissioner an engineered report from S.J. Mulaney Engineering that identifies each lot, its current use, and its proposed use, which is the end use. So I'd like to submit that now if possible.
And I guess what I would say is that since we're getting material now, which we appreciate, that we really shouldn't take any action on any of these things, and we then give us time and give the building commissioner time to work on it as well.
I would agree.
So these identify the current permits, their location, the landowner. As you can see, they're not all PJ Keating. The acres, the permit number, the current site conditions, and then the proposed use, which was ultimately the closure plan, or the end result. So we'd like to submit that, which satisfies that bullet point too.
Can I ask a clarifying question? You said that you're leasing the mineral rights. Who are you leasing them from?
From the Keating Family Trust, which is identified as the property owners.
So which two are the two that we...
So permits 28 and 29, I believe, were the original two that were offered up. 28 is actually the building site. We own that property. And 29 is trust land.
So then you don't lease mineral rights on 28?
Yes, correct. PJ Keating does own that site, correct.
So then that doesn't come under what you just said. You don't lease mineral rights on 28.
Okay, so
you can close that one. I mean, that excuse goes away for 28.
And I'm not trying to offer an excuse. I'm just the conduit here between...
No, but I'm saying it doesn't apply.
Okay.
Am I correct?
Yeah, we own it, so you're absolutely correct. We are not leasing that property, correct.
I was just really confused.
Okay.
Thank you. So, 29, the mineral rights belong to the trust under the will of Paul J. Keating, Robert Keating, and Mary J. Coburn, trustees?
Correct.
So it'll be the same for 15, 16...
And that's what this engineered report
19,
or
17,
plan is.
18...
Right, but without going into the details, that's the second bullet. You're
the second bullet, right?
Submitting something you promised, and we just got it now.
Correct. Yes, correct. And I did.
Sorry about the third.
So go back to today. We had multiple meetings, and today we actually brought in the application for the other two, and I actually did go over to see if I could meet with Gary Rhodes to kind of identify the change in the plan, because, we, in good faith, met with him and told him what our plans were, and unfortunately, that did change. So I did make an attempt. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get him. I did reach out. I did get a call from Andrew, and he was aware that we were going to make this change tonight.
So this all happened today?
Today, correct, yes. So I was here probably around 2 o'clock.
So the third and fourth bullet points?
And, the third bullet point is all ERPs will be identified by map and parcel number, which is what we submitted there, and it's all colored delineated, which identifies it clearly where those were. And last year at this time, what we didn't know was exactly where these were. So we put some effort into identifying. It's clearly identified what permit and where it is on the property. And then the fourth one is, wherever there's an adjacent parcel, these sites shall be merged into one permit. So once again, we reviewed that, but PJ Keating as not the landowner, I think it's hard for us to make that to distinguish which one should be merged in one. We're not the landowners, we're just leasing the mineral rights. So at this point, we'd like to have them remain as originally permitted.
Are you in conversations with the landowner?
Well, through our corporation, we're CRH American Materials, large corporation, and this is all filters through them.
So are you in communication with the landowners?
Through our attorneys, correct. So
you could work something out?
Yeah, I imagine there could be something worked out, but that's, that's several pay grades above me right at the moment, so I'm just here trying to identify what was stated to us in the meeting last year and what we've accomplished, which I believe, based on what we've presented and what was asked, that we have met the criteria.
I would make a motion that we move this to a future meeting in August with the consideration of review by the building commissioner of what was submitted tonight, policy discussions regarding the two properties that were raised by the building inspector commissioner, as well as the policy regarding the property owner discussion about versus the licensor, the person who licenses the property.
Okay.
I think that's a new twist to our bylaw. The bylaw says any person who does gravel removal, so we've been giving it to the person who does it, but the fact that it may be a property owner that's somebody different is, I think we need to discuss that as part of our policy discussion.
And involve town council as well.
Second to that motion?
Yes.
Any further discussion?
So, what
further discussion?
Oh, sorry.
I guess I would want to make sure that we involve town council, because it sounds like...
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we'll take this up probably the 21st. We could do that?
Yes. Is that fine to do it on the 21st? And not...
Because the 14th we'll have our workshop, maybe we can get the broader issues, give them a couple of weeks to work.
Is the 21st okay for them?
Yes, to the building commissioner and the building inspector.
And then we're still within the 31st, which we can extend if we have to, but I prefer not to.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Sure.
One request and just one statement. Sure. One statement is PJ Keating has these permits. They're in PJ Keating's name because we do lease the land for the mineral rights. Okay, so in theory we are the ones requesting the permit. And the second thing we would like is if there are recommendations from the board that we receive those in writing so that we can react to them.
Yep.
As we did from the meeting last year. We good neighbors in Lunenburg intend to be good neighbors and certainly want to do what's right. Certainly, whatever recommendations or whatever things we need to do before the 21st, if we could somehow receive that in writing so that we could all be on the same page, that's what we respectfully request.
And as
we
the
may
chair,
not
well,
know before the 21st.
Right. Well, as
that's
the
when we're
chairman
going to
said,
discuss
is that if we don't, we have the ability to extend the permits for 3 months and then come back before we'd extend it for a longer period of time. So we will work with you to get to the correct solution, but we can't make decisions if we don't have information before us.
Okay. And one last question, I promise. And I lie a lot, but I promise one last question. What can we expect on the 21st? What should we be prepared for on the 21st?
We don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
We don't know. I mean, you just gave us this, and we just put it on our agenda.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So, good point. We have a scheduling conflict. We have a Board of Health meeting at our Acushnet facility that I'll be attending. Is there a way that we could orchestrate a different date?
I guess my recommendation is we need to see whether we can do that or not. I mean, if push comes to shove, we may have to push something into September with a one-month extension of permits. You know, whenever we've done that, we don't require you to do a permit fee and then another permit fee. We do it for what it turns out. So we'll work with you. We would just want to make sure the building commissioner has enough time to look at this and town council and other stuff like that.
Okay, so we'll be notified of any date change? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you're unavailable on the 21st, so that's out?
That's correct,
Okay.
yes. I'd prefer to be here instead of the Board of Health and Acushnet if that helps, but I can't.
Thank you.
Gary, you want to walk us through Pal now?
Just don't know why I can't get these freaking things.
Good afternoon.
Hello again.
When we last met, or when these permits were extended, one permit was not renewed, and that was the one on Leominster Shirley Road. That was not renewed, but the board did require a closure plan. And when we met with the engineer on the closure plan that was provided, it was determined that they had actually expanded onto adjoining property for which there was no earth removal permit applied for on it. I bring this to the board's attention because the board may wish to say, you need to provide us with one. I believe their engineer is here tonight and he can go over that closure plan, what he has. According to the bylaw, a closure plan, I got these things messed up here. A closure plan should include final grades, final drainage, final revegetation if necessary, and a location of any buried debris on the site. So I would expect that the engineer would be able to provide that for you. However, now also there's a permit that the board did extend on Goodrich. It encompasses 16 acres. It was my opinion that the vast majority of that earth had been removed as consistent with the permit. And a small portion in the rear still exists. There may be about an acre of material. The board, when we last left, said you were going to require a closure plan. Nothing has been submitted to me or, to my knowledge, to the board. It would be my recommendation that the board not renew the permit. Because, again, there's only a small portion of material there. And that's not to say that in the future they couldn't come back and request the earth removal permit. Maybe then, at the time, the board can, maybe, as I understand, we're going to have a meeting to look at new rules and regulations and look at how those are approached. Maybe that's a way to look at it, you know, in more modern times. Again, I don't recommend that one to be renewed. I know there may be mineral rights or anything, but the board has a permit they've issued. It's discretionary. The board has placed conditions on it, and those conditions should be maintained no matter what. Again, that's my opinion.
So on the 151 Leominster Shirley Road that they have submitted a closure plan, does that closure plan cover the area that was not subject to the permit, or does it only cover what was subject to the permit?
My understanding is that it's both sides. But again, the engineer will be here, then they can better explain the plan for you.
Is there somebody from PAL here this evening? Yeah, great.
If you have any other questions, I'll be here.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Brian Marchetti with McCarty Engineering. I'm here on behalf of Powell Stone and Gravel. This is the closure plan for 151 Leominster Shirley Road. As Mr. Rhodes said, this is the site where his current retail is. This is the roadway that drives in by his scale house. So this is the gravel processing yard that he currently operates. Back in 2011, there was a permit obtained for a garage back here. And while construction was happening, they acquired the additional parcel to the north and east of it. So what was previously proposed wasn't constructed. So this plan here...
Could you stand a little closer? Or you can actually take it with you.
Sure. So this plan you see here covers the area only what was in the current earth removal permit. This doesn't show the additional acreage that they've expanded onto. When we met last winter with Mr. Rhodes and Planning Department to discuss the permit, the active permit doesn't reflect what was being constructed on site that's been in operation since 2011. We basically discussed, okay, we see it's different now. The permit's not valid, so we're closing the permits and I'm re-permitting now the current use of the site. So in order to clean up the paperwork, we wanted to close out that permit. So the current earth removal permit, this is the closure plan that shows the grades. This is the as-built grades as it stands today. The green is all the vegetation. This is the field right off of Shirley Road. This gray hatch is the current area that's paved, and the orange is what is currently the active gravel yard. And everything inside here drains to the middle, so it all goes off-site toward the middle, and it's contained on-site, which is intentional because of the use on the property. So that being said, we want to close out that earth removal permit, and then we're working right now with the surveyors. We'll have survey back. We were supposed to have it back in July, but our surveyors confirmed we should have it next week. So hopefully by the end of August, beginning of September, we'll be resubmitting with the planning board a whole new plan for this parcel that's here, as well as the additional 30-plus acres beyond that's currently being used as loam screening, concrete crushing, asphalt crushing plant. So this is their manufacturing yard where they process all the materials that they sell, and that will be the continued use in the future. So for this specific plan, yes, we do want to close it, and we know we do have to come back and request or apply for new permits for the existing use of the site from Planning Board, earth removal with the Board of Selectmen for portions that have already been removed and what's going to continue to be removed on this parcel. You know, we're here. Difficult situation. We're beyond. Work was performed that shouldn't have been performed without a permit. It took several years for the town and others to notice and figure out what was going on, and we were alerted of it. And myself being brought in kind of late in the game to sit down, say, okay, this is the situation. We know what happened, and now we want to go forward permitting the proper way. So,
is there removal going on from the part that's not permitted?
There is no more removal going on now. Okay. Now it's all a processing yard. But earth was removed, and I don't have a volume for you or an extent, but obviously that'll be part of the plan when we come back. So the points in your bylaw that states what needs to be provided on this plan is shown on the plan, and we do add notes about the burying of stumps and all that, which should make this plan complete per your requirements of the closure plan.
So the reason the planning board's involved is because they were issued a special permit site plan.
Yes. And that was back in 2011.
And it was earth removed beyond where it should have been?
What happened was they owned up to this property line. So Palestone and Gravel owned this lot. The design was to bring in a garage here, so the garages that were operating up on Shirley Road at the intersection by Route 70 were going to be relocated. And in the meantime, it takes years to permit and then start construction and carry through. They acquired the whole back parcel here, so their development plan changed. And at the same time, they acquired the Padula Brothers lot, and that became their retail facility. So kind of a lot happened in sequence. That was all permitted properly. This was permitted properly, but then when this other additional property was acquired, the development plan over here changed, and they basically just kept removing material for their processing areas and expanded what's out there into areas to do their asphalt reclaiming and concrete crushing and So all their gravel manufacturing now is contained within this additional lot.
Now, when did they stop removing from the area that they weren't supposed to be? Do you know?
It would, I don't know, but it would be years ago.
Okay.
So it's been years since they've stopped hauling and cutting from the backside. It's all currently concrete and asphalt stockpiles and loam stockpiles.
So it's sort of just storage now?
It is. It's all storage where they, any active construction site, people ripping up roadways or concrete, they bring the trucks in here, dump it piles, and then piles have the crushing plants that they operate, that they turn that asphalt and concrete into usable gravel again.
So the building commissioners stated regarding this property, as far, not the part that's not permitted, but the place for the closure, states that I would recommend the board have the applicant explain their closure plan. It shall include grades, drainage, revegetation, drawing, and you are preparing a plan to amend the existing special permit site plan approval issued by the planning board. When's that going to happen?
Yeah, so, as I said, we had, back when we met with planning and the building commissioner in December, January, we were told this site isn't in compliance, so I had a survey done of this parcel, and then as I sat down and started creating these documents to do the closure plan and re-permit it, that's when, I realized there was a big gap between this property line and this one now. So, called time out, went and met with Gary Rhodes and Adam Burney again and said, this is the situation now. That was about May. It doesn't make any sense for me to come here with a new site development for this parcel only, because it's a lot more now. So I wasn't going to come and get a new permit that wasn't valid.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided at that point now I had to have the next 30-something acres surveyed, and that takes time. So.
But are you going to do a closure plan on this piece?
This is the closure plan you see here. Okay. So the items that you just mentioned, the topography, all the contours are on here. So that's all on here. I added the notes about stormwater runoff for the pavement areas collected in catch basins and directs the existing infiltration basin on site, which is here, which is called out. Stormwater runoff from the stabilized gravel manufacturing area has been directed to the center of the manufacturing area where it is infiltrated on site. Stabilized gravel is the orange area. It all drains to the middle of the site where it's infiltrated. Any trees or stumps or waste material has been taken off site and disposed of in accordance with town of Lunenburg standards. So they do have areas on site of stump disposal where people bring it in, but it's all ground up into chips and compost. So there's nothing buried on site. They've excavated. They haven't been burying these materials on site. And proposed grades shown on the plan represent the current condition of the stabilized manufacturing area. So what you see here is the sand stockpiles, is loam stockpiles, and this is all general fill. And then beyond is where you find all the asphalt and concrete rubble piles that are being processed. These colors represent the stabilization that's out here now. So all the items that is called for in your bylaw are shown on this plan.
So when you go back to the planning board, is there any chance that this plan will change?
This plan will not change.
Okay.
So this is the current survey. What we've had done that we should receive next week is the supplemental survey to get the next 30 acres. And that will be, basically the existing conditions plan we'll be presenting is the proposed conditions plan for the site as it's operated now and is anticipated to continue for, the future.
So about how many acres is the green and the orange? Do you know?
I don't know offhand. I believe this parcel here was around 30 acres, and then the other one is almost the same.
Okay.
So it's probably, the entire parcel is probably 50 to 60 acres.
The permit 54 states that it's 11.16 acres.
I think that was just, the earth removal permit before was just back here, which was previously vegetated, and the grades were much higher in the back. The entire parcel is the 30-something acres.
Okay, I guess I'm still not ready to make a motion on this because I think that you've done a lot of work on this and you come along with, but I would like actually an official recommendation from the planning director. And does this plan meet the requirements that we think we do? Is there anything else that relates to the plan? And that be added to the record. I'm inclined to approve it because I think for this part there is a provision in the bylaw that if somebody violates it, you can hold off any other permits. And so I'm ready not to issue anything on Goodrich Street either, pending that we need to get the other permit for the property that they did and the closure. So you need the permit to issue it and then a closure plan as well, based on what I'm reading here. So I'm not ready to take any action on Powell tonight.
Can I just have a question? So this is a closure plan for a site that will partially, hopefully, reopen?
Yes.
Okay, so it won't meet like what a typical closure plan would be for a site that's sort of finished. The goal is to close it so it can reopen.
Well, it's a little more complicated than that, but this front area, there is no more removal. There's no more area to remove. There's no more gravel to cut. This is all a stockpiling and processing site now. So there will never be any more cutting from this part of the site that you see now, which is what the current permit covers.
So you wouldn't have a problem closing the existing permit?
I would rather close the permit so
and
that we come back with a new
earth
permit.
removal permit for your ongoing site?
Yes, which could cover the full site.
But you're not removing any gravel over there. You're going to come right in with a closure plan for that one, too.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, now that we have the survey back,
we
can look at the whole area. There may be a piece he'll want to keep open because there's still material to remove. It's this part we're done with. It's closed. There's no argument that there will be no more earth removal from this plan you see here, which is what's covered under the current earth removal permit that we're requesting be closed. We want to come back with a clean slate for the whole site now, to planning, to selectmen, zoning if we have to, everybody, in order to permit the site properly. There was a special permit, I believe, before, and we've discussed now, the use that we want to propose, which is a manufacturing area, is allowed in this zone. So we don't need a special permit anymore. We're going to come back for site plan approval with the planning board.
Just looking at that, the building official's memo, I guess what I'm looking for to go along with what you just said is that if the building commissioner tells us that he is now satisfied that earth removal permit 32, which was parcels...
No, that's Goodrich Street. We're on 54.
Okay, and 54, because both of them, he says he's still looking for some information. He's recommending that they haven't provided a closure plan for 32, and that he wants to make sure that the board have applicant explain their closure plan for 54 to make sure it meets code 140-13. So when he tells us that those two things are accomplished, I'd be willing to close out these and then let him come forward with a plan for whatever he's doing going forward.
Well, and on the Goodrich Street property, they've now said that they want to continue it. They don't want to give us a closure plan.
Okay.
That's the other part that's going on there. So can you speak on Goodrich Street?
So I don't have a physical plan for Goodrich Street. I believe the Goodrich Street permit was obtained by Ray Powell back in the 1970s. It was, I believe Mr. Rhodes said 16 acres or so. Right now, it's where the Powell's horse farm is. It's a good-sized piece of property tucked back in the woods, and there's about an acre of land left that he could mine. And they keep it open because they do feed from it. It's a pit. It's got select material that they do feed from on a not a regular basis, but yearly. So they don't want to close that plan because they still use it. It's even if you look at the entire site, and I'd love to, if it makes it easier, go out there with Mr. Rhodes and Steve Powell to say, look at what's here. It's only about an acre. There's a little less than an acre that's exposed right now at grade, but that's where they truck into. If we have to close it, loam it, seed it, cover it, that's the processing area where trucks and machines move around. The rest of that whole area back there, the majority of it's already stabilized in grass and hay and covered. So there's, I met with Steve, discussed it with him again today, and they want to keep that one open. So if there's something we need to do to meet, to update it or do something, if we met with Mr. Rhodes or even members of the board out there, we could look at what's physically open and actively being mined and come up with a plan as to if we may be able to cover a half an acre, but it's a small area.
When we renewed the permit last year, we did it with a condition that you provide a closure plan for the areas where the earth removal has been completed. So I'd say that we need a closure plan. We're not trying to say shut down the 1 acre, or if you need to have 1 acre plus driving, whatever you need to do. It's like, what is the appropriate closure?
That's kind of the argument Steve's saying. There's nothing we can close right now because they're actively working one section of it, and the only area that's still exposed is the aisle to access it and the maneuvering area around it. So I'll provide any plans you need.
So you don't, since you don't have a plan, I can't make any
That's fine, but-
determination. I need to at least have a plan for why you don't want to close the
That's
whole
right,
thing.
but to provide you with a plan, I think I need to go out there with members of the town.
Yeah, I think part of
Say,
it,
this is
you need to
what-
understand this, the majority that is already closed. So a plan for something that's already closed, that's already fields, that's already farm pretty much, is kind of silly to make a closure plan for something that's already closed.
Yeah,
But you have to have a closure plan to close out the permit. So I guess the question is that...
Well, they don't want to
Which I
close out the
understand,
permit,
they don't want to
though.
close it, so...
So if you don't close it, theoretically, you can then dig more where it's already revegetated.
Yes.
So that's why we were talking about, we want to limit the gravel removal to where they want to do gravel removal. So I don't think it has to be an engineered plan. You know, I don't want it back of
It
an
could be the
envelope
aerial
either.
circle, but I did that today. I was printing one out and looking at it. It's an acre. It's a small area. It's not something that I can really provide a detailed...
I want to work with you, but I don't, without a plan, I don't know.
That's fine.
what we're
And
doing.
I think to get to a point where we can do something about it, we need to meet out there with the building inspector to say, what do you want?
What do you want?
And the other thing I would just state the obvious is that we, as the board, are doing land use decisions here, and one of the things that the land use director has talked to us about, and we're going to get back to that, is that this really should be under the planning board's jurisdiction within the site plan review and all the other things like that. Not that we wouldn't have comments or anything. So that would be something when we talk about the workshop of what we're doing, which make things easier. So.
Okay, so we'll revisit this maybe on the same time frame as the Keating one.
Well, can we take care of permit 54?
Until we get the information we wanted,
Don't we have the information we needed?
well, I don't know whether these meets the standards.
Don't have Adam weigh in?
Has Adam
Can
reviewed
Adam
it?
or Mr. Rhodes weigh in? Come on, Adam.
So, the bylaw states that the closure plan will have final contours, which, I mean, this is what this site exists as now, and has for 4 or so years. I mean, as long as I've been here in town, this is more or less what this parcel's looked like. Proposed final drainage, which has been outlined, and if I'm not mistaken, Brian was preparing this site to go to the planning board. And so part of that is preparing a drainage report that shows, you know, pre and post development, and then proposed final revegetation. I think this is, again, the grass is established out there, and the brown or gold or whatever you want to call it area is proposed to remain that way. So, I mean, I think that this is what the proposal is for the end of that property and its continued life for the foreseeable future. It's to scale, you know, and...
Is it acceptable?
Granted,
that's a determination that the 5 folks on the
Right.
stage need to make.
But
It's not a...
do you believe that is acceptable to this,
I think as
to the
far as the
town?
purposes of the earth removal bylaw, yes, it's acceptable.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't want to say that as far as site plan or the engineering aspects of it, that this meets all of those, because there's a lot more that goes into that. And I think that if your concern is what is the impact in the long term or those sorts of things, there is a secondary vehicle that will review this plan as it gets
Used
put
in a
forward.
different way.
Because he does, I mean, this is not at all what was approved back in 2011, and with the addition of the, you know, other 30 acres, there's some other things that need to be reviewed and looked at.
I would make
That's
a
going to
motion.
happen, right?
I would make a motion we approve the closure plan for permit 54 as submitted.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
1 of 2.
We got something done.
So, your next meeting, if the building inspector will meet us out there, we can meet there this week, beginning next week, and be prepared for the next meeting.
Yeah. Get us some information on Goodrich Street.
Great.
And make sure you get the permit and closure plan for the part that was illegally done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to the town officials who weighed in on this whole process.
Yeah.
It's very
Thank
helpful.
you for it was very educational.
Before we move on to town manager report and old business, is someone from Bootleggers here?
Yes.
Please.
Great. Why? Good. Good. I just wanted a brief update on what's going on.
Tell us who you are.
I'm Lance Delagono. I'm one of the partners at the Bootlegger. And Sean, I think, came to the last meeting. So what we're doing is we are relaunching. So we're in the process right now of hiring, and I'd say probably between 6 to 8 weeks, it looks like our time frame to be able to reopen the doors. You know, we're doing some interior painting and rearranging, and then by the time we get done training, I think that is a reasonable amount of time for us to relaunch. So.
If I'm not mistaken, your license extension expired on the 21st of July, is that correct?
Right.
How long did you say you were hoping to?
I'd say roughly 6 to 8 weeks would be a reasonable time.
I would make a motion that we extend the license to October 31st.
Second.
Any further discussion? I'd just like to say that if we see you again before the 31st, I'd like to see something in writing with some deadlines and milestones.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We want it open.
Yes.
That's not the wrong message, but we are the
Yes.
licensing authority. We need to
Yes.
make sure we do things correctly.
Absolutely, I understand.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Town manager report?
An update on the Summer Street Road Reconstruction project. The contractor, Baltazar, is continuing their drainage work on the Fitchburg end of the project. Given the depth of some of the structures and the utility conflicts encountered, the work has been slow going. They have a crew wrapping up another project in August and will be able to bring a second crew in to this project to speed things up. A groundbreaking ceremony for the Summer Street Road Reconstruction project. After reaching out to the governor's office to find out if the governor and lieutenant governor were available to attend a groundbreaking ceremony for this project, the governor's office responded that Governor Baker's schedule was too hectic, but the lieutenant governor, Pollinator, would be available. I've been working with Mass DOT about the logistics for an event and contacting the necessary public officials and outreach. I'm in the process of working with the Lieutenant Governor's office on a date that will attempt to accommodate everyone's schedules as best as possible, but the date will be driven by the availability of the Lieutenant Governor. More information will follow. The Business Town Partnership update. There will be a Business Town Partnership meeting on Monday, August 13th at 5 p.m. at Bad Larry's Bar and Grill. Montechusett Regional Planning Commission Principal Planner Karen Chapman, Land Use Director Adam Burney, and I will review a draft business brochure with the Lunenburg Business Association as part of the District Local Technical Assistance funding we received to create an electronic brochure. In related news, there will be a Quad Town Mixer on Wednesday, September 19th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the White Farm in Townsend, being put on by the Townsend Business Association. The event is a mixer for businesses from Townsend, Pepperell, Groton, and Lunenburg. The FY19 state budget. Governor Baker signed the FY19 state budget on July 26th that included a slight increase in Chapter 70 funds and slight decreases in state assessments that provided the town an additional $162,000 in revenues. The state budget also included $130,000 for the Turkey Hill Asbestos Abatement Project that was originally included in the town's FY19 capital plan, and those funds can now be reappropriated at the special town meeting for other capital requests. An update on the town hall weather vane. So the mystery of the town hall weather vane still goes unresolved. Previous accounts that it may be at the DPW building or the fire department are inaccurate. A few years ago, the weather vane had blown off the roof onto the sidewalk in front of the town hall and was brought to the DPW, and from there it was brought back to the town hall and placed on top of the large safe in the basement. Our office sent an email to the town-wide email listserv to ask if anyone had any information about the whereabouts of the weather vane, and a few town employees confirmed that it had last been seen on top of the large safe in the town hall basement this past spring. The individuals that were part of the removal of the records in the basement were included on the email that went out, and the company who performed the mold remediation has been asked as well. The Historical Commission was contacted to request assistance with finding a replacement, and our insurance company has been contacted about filing a property loss claim. An update on the skateboard park. The topographical survey and soil testing done at the end of June will be used to prepare a design that should be done by September. Once an initial design is complete, the Skateboard Park Committee will go back before the Parks Commission to seek endorsement of the design, and once approved by the Parks Commission, it will come for final approval by the Board of Selectmen. The Parks Commission also asked the Skateboard Park Committee to do additional research of annual maintenance costs of skateboard parks in similarly sized communities that would include labor costs spent on landscaping and other associated costs. The Skateboard Park Committee states they believe they will be ready to break ground by March. As of July 26th, they had raised $13,000 and had a fundraiser on July 28th, which I was told they made an additional $2,000. They have a goal of raising $100,000 in cash, and the additional project cost, which is an estimated $150,000, would be in-kind donations of labor, materials, and equipment. ADA self-evaluation and transition plan, and the Mass Office on Disability Grants. Selectman Adams and I attended an ADA transition plan meeting at Montechusett Regional Planning Commission on July 26th to hear about the possibility of MRPC planning services that could assist communities to develop their ADA transition plans. At the time of the meeting, an ADA transition self-evaluation and transition plan had not been found, but subsequent to that meeting, I found that the town had performed a self-evaluation and written transition plan for municipal and school buildings in 2009. This plan was not on file at the Mass Office on Disability, which is the agency that promotes full and equal participation of people with disabilities through training to employers, advocacy, and resources, such as the Municipal ADA Improvement Grant Program that offers planning grants to create or update a self-evaluation or transition plan, and project grants of up to $250,000 to remove barriers and create and improve accessible features and access for persons with disabilities. MRPC will be providing a scope of work and project costs for interested communities to use when applying for the planning grant, which I intend to apply for to update our 2009 transition plan. Even though our transition plan is outdated, we are eligible to apply for a project grant, and I have a call into the Assistant Director of Community Services at the Mass Office on Disability to find out the scope of eligible projects that we could apply for. Both grants are due by October 1st. In the meantime, I've asked the Land Use Director to have the building inspector begin the self-evaluation on the municipal buildings, and have asked the School Facilities Director to do the same for the school buildings. This comprehensive checklist will cover any non-compliance with ADA requirements, and the updated transition plan will also include open space, parks, and other public properties in addition to all the public buildings. Related to updating our transition plan, I would like to revitalize the Americans with Disabilities Act Committee that has been disbanded for many years. This would include persons with disabilities that would have more awareness of physical barriers to programs, services, and facilities that would make them more accessible to persons with disabilities. Just other announcements, Town Council has office hours in August, on August 28th from 2 to 6 p.m. I attended a meeting with the State 911 Director and the Bolton Town Administrator today to discuss additional state funding for the Regional Dispatch Center, and we'll be attending the Finance Committee meeting this Thursday, August 9th.
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions. On the skateboard park, they have, you said $15,000, and they want to raise $85,000 more, plus $150,000 additional in kind. What do they need to have in hand before they're able to break ground?
I think their goal of $100,000 was what their...
So if they have $100,000, where does the town get assurance that the $150,000 in that's a lot of in-kind? What assurance does the town have that the $150,000 in in-kind is signed for and also available? Because that's more than the $100,000. That's more than half of what they need.
No, that's a good question. I can follow up with the committee, and I do believe they have approached a number of different organizations with assurances that they could receive in-kind donations, but that's...
But they,
In fact, it might even be P.J. Keating's.
And they will be coming back to the selectmen in the fall.
Do they have any alternative plans for phasing? Should they not?
No, I think you have to do it all at once. It's all concrete pour. You're going to do it all at once.
Construction joints.
Yeah.
And how will I liked that the Park Commission asked about finding out about landscaping and maintenance, and what's the plan for covering the annual maintenance? I mean, is it going to be like an enterprise fund that's going to pay for itself?
I think what was discussed at the Parks Commission meeting, and Karen Menard can also speak to it, was that if any excess funds that were raised, if they could be put in an account that would sustain any future expenses.
Well, that's dreaming big.
What's the life of the proposed park? I mean, is there any information available on how long this particular park would last and what we're left with then? I mean, it's like the turf field's good for 10 years, and then we got to face that monster every 10 years. I'd like to know more about that.
So Karen Menard, Parks Commission. At our last meeting, one of the questions we had asked was obviously around financing and the long-term maintenance of this facility.
Yes, thank you.
They reassured us time and time again that there was no maintenance, and we pushed back, and we sent them back with some homework to do to ask the questions of some of the towns, and I didn't want them to go to, say, the city of Framingham, where they were getting some of their figures from, because they're a big city. They operate a little bit differently than we do as such a small town. So we did ask them to go back. They did say that in the first 10 years, there would be no maintenance fees. So I'm looking at it as this is a 10-year... This facility will last at least 10 years. I know that the DPW director was concerned about graffiti, trash, things like that. This is a great group of young folks that are being guided by the adults, but the adults are guiding. The kids are doing the bulk of the work. So we were directing, at least I was directing questions to the kids and sent them back with some homework to do. So I expect them to come back to us either at our next meeting or even in September with some more information. And I plan on following up outside of the meetings to see where they are and to see if they've started to do the homework that we asked them to do in terms of what is the actual maintenance of this.
But you said the skate park may last just 10 years?
Well, no, they're not anticipating any maintenance costs in the first 10 years. So that to me is, and I could be misreading it, that to me is saying that it will be at least, this facility will be there at least 10 years. I would expect it to be there longer. It's a concrete structure. When I've gone to other areas and looked at their skate parks, some of them have been in there for 17, 18 years, and they're the original skate parks from when they were first put in.
But you don't know what they've done to maintain them?
No idea. None whatsoever.
Yeah, I think there's just a huge liability for the town with something like this. I mean, do people act, do you need a big fence around it? so that people can't access it when they're not supposed to.
Yeah, and those were questions that we had asked about insurance at the last Parks Commission meeting, you know, where does it fall under, and it would all be under the town. I don't think there's anything separate that needs, we actually had a skate park in town. I don't know if anybody remembers it. It was over at Marshall Park. There's actually still a wooden structure there that's dilapidated and unusable. So this this won't be the first skate park that's been put in. And from what I have read in previous Park Commission minutes, there weren't any issues, other than, you know, it was at a bad location, so kids were able to go down there late at night and escape being seen, and did whatever teenagers do down there. That was the only issue that they had, and this is in a location that would be more open.
So what's the status of that park now?
It's non-existent. There's nothing usable down there.
But it's still there.
There's one structure. I don't even know if I want to call it a structure.
It's a dumpster now.
Yeah. And I don't know if, once we brought it to the attention of the DPW director, I don't know if he went down and has already removed it. I haven't checked. But last spring when I first started, or maybe it was the fall, I guess, when I first started walking some of the park property with these young men to see what their idea was, see what parks had for space, it was there, and it's not usable.
So how long ago do you think it was usable?
Ooh, it's probably been
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very bad sign to me.
Well, no, this was wooden.
It wasn't concrete.
This is concrete.
You know, it's just...
It's not a concrete. So one of the things on the web...
The municipal way is not, you know...
I think understanding the long-term cost of anything we do is really important.
And I would
there's a
expect
lot
the
of
Park
missing
Department to come up with that. And one of the things on the website that talk about, you need to build it in a way that the concrete doesn't break. So therefore, that's why they did the soil test. But maintenance is trash and debris, graffiti removal, landscaping. The issue becomes that if there's anything on there for where the skateboards can actually ride on something that's not concrete, how is that going to be maintained? But the concrete itself, if it's built appropriately, won't need to have any maintenance. So
it's not painted or anything?
No. So, but it's a walkway to it, you know, assuming that...
Is there a fence around it?
I'd hope not.
I don't believe so. Well,
you know, how do you limit use of it?
I don't think
you don't.
You don't. It would be an open. It would be like any other park that would be open for use. You know, I'm sure the Parks Commission could set hours if we needed to set hours. It doesn't seem to be really in an area that I think noise would be an issue. So I can't imagine kids down there after dark being able to use it safely. So you know, it might be something that's open during daylight hours only. You know, and that's something that we can.
I look forward to seeing the maintenance plan beyond 10 years.
Yes, I do as well.
Because we need to have the long term as well as the short term.
Yep, agreed. So, and I will work with them. And if anybody sees them, they're a great group of kids. They're more than happy to answer your questions as well. So, great.
I would ask, so just on the maintenance, what they've done for concrete repairs too, because concrete isn't forever, and when you have cracks, you need to fill them, and when there's chips and whatever that are dangerous to riding, they're going to need to patch and repair that too.
Okay. I can certainly ask
Don't just assume it's not.
Yeah.
They did reference a product that they use for skateboard parks on the concrete, elephant glue or something to that effect.
Yeah.
That was used to seal crack those.
Yeah.
Is that something that like DPW can fix, or do you have to bring somebody in who knows what they're doing?
I don't think it requires a specialty, person to come in and do it.
I won't do it. Somebody else with some expertise probably would be able to.
That's probably a good.
But we do need a concrete plan.
Yes.
Yeah. You're on a roll tonight.
Thank you, Karen. Do you have any other questions, Phil?
Sure. I have a question for Heather, and I guess just going back to my public comment, because I feel like I just say it and it always just drops. In terms of ADA compliance and considering having meetings elsewhere, can we put that on as like an agenda item or something, so I don't just say it at the beginning of meetings and then it just drops? For some real analysis, if we can look at these. When you talk about the transitions in the meeting we were at, I mean, some of it goes into the legality of not transitioning and what is legally required for the town to comply or to hope to improve compliance. So if we have things that we can do to improve, I feel like that might have been like the 8th time I said it and it just dropped. So I would like to move that topic forward and how we can truly look at spaces and transition, and some of them might not need grants or long-term plans. Some of them we might be able to do. I mean, I was sitting at the town beach for 2 weeks, and it was during the time I went to that meeting, and the night before I had gone to an open space meeting where they were talking about the ADA compliance of open space. And when you really stop and you think about a space, I thought if I had a handicapped child or even a temporarily injured child, I couldn't access swimming lessons. And so when you talked about forming the committee, and I would love to volunteer to be the selectman member on it. But if you really stop and think about it, and there was a woman who gave an example of Crane Beach and how she can access the ocean once she has her hip replacements, and really put yourself in the place of somebody who can't access a space. I mean, these stairs aren't great. We do have a lift, but we have a $72 million completely ADA compliant building that we could be in right now. And I feel like I've said that as a citizen. I said it tonight, and it just drops. So if we could add that as an item of really being more empathetic and not just kicking cans when look for ways to transition. It doesn't have to be a huge process. We could be someplace else next week for free. So if we could somehow talk about it for real.
You have to involve the school with that, too, for scheduling purposes.
We've met there for complete streets meetings and whatnot, but
those are one-off things. It's not occupying their space.
It'll be an agenda item. We can talk about it.
Right.
Thank you.
Just trying to involve everyone in the conversation.
Is that it on town manager?
Yeah, I'm just hoping we can be more ADA compliant without it being a negative topic.
Okay, old business. The Board of Selectmen goals. This A, B, and C are pretty much a distillation of what we discussed the last couple of weeks. They'll, if you're okay with it, appear on our agenda just as ongoing as it did last year. Number 2 is a discussion of the liaison. We've kind of kicked that can a couple of times. As part of our 3rd goal, increase alignment with committees appointed by the Board of Selectmen, I intend to attend the next Personnel Committee meeting and try to engage them in helping with onboarding, recruiting, training, some other things for board-appointed committees, some of the sub-bullets that we had in our goals. So I would recommend that we hold a discussion of liaison to appointed boards until we bring back a discussion of all of our goal-related increased alignment with committees appointed by us. But I do think we have to address liaison to elected boards because several reasons. One is we've been saying we were going to do it and we didn't. And second, I think you may have noticed in your package there was a note from the Sewer Commission that specifically requested that we discontinue our liaison with them. So I do have a list.
And I actually consider that a success of the town manager, because the town manager has been actively in communication with the chair, business manager of the Sewer Commission, and attended several sewer meetings. And when we started doing liaisons, I don't think there was as much communication with the town manager, with that committee, the library. I'm not sure if there's anything with the Board of Health, but certainly with the schools. So I think that's changed the tenor of the elected official liaison discussion. If the chair of that committee feels they're communicating with the board sufficiently, then I don't think there needs to be that liaison. Board of Health, unless there's something major going on, I don't think there needs to be a liaison of that. Library, I have a personal interest in it. I haven't talked to them, but The town manager and the library director are in communication on a regular basis. The number of times I've gone and the library director reports in communication with the town manager, here's the following things. So all the various information on that. The Public Access Committee, that we can move that over to the committees appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, I kind of feel that any of us can attend any of those meetings anytime we want anyway. And we certainly have I have a feeling that we have an open invitation to any of those committees to get on our agenda if there's an item. In fact, I have a note that the school committee has requested that once the new superintendent gets her feet wet, that we do have a joint meeting just, you know, without an issue. You know,
Yeah, right.
One
That'd
of
be
them
nice.
to know each other and begin to have some joint work. So is there any other input?
Regarding elected?
Regarding the elected liaisons to other elected boards or committees?
Well, I want to continue being the liaison to the school board.
I think the question becomes, is it a real position called liaison, or do you want to continue going?
I think it goes to the question is, what do we mean by liaison? Because initially, what I started doing, I reported back on what the Board of Health, when they were adopting various regulations, Sewer Commission, when they were doing their some of the betterments in the Whalum area, grease traps was almost every single report I talked about, because that continues to be an issue. But then it got to the point, well, all right, what are we going to talk about, and who sets the agenda? Is it my agenda? Is it their agenda? What exactly is the liaison's role, whether it's appointed committees or elected? I don't know if we have. What do we as the selectmen want to get out of it as the selectmen versus us individually?
I liked when the Council on Aging came and presented, I think instead of random liaisons and not a lot of structure, to set up a schedule of having little reports and visits, and I don't know. I wouldn't want to get rid of it altogether. I don't know.
I agree with you. I think they happen to be an appointed board, but and I was their liaison, but we kind of initiated a way to phase that out and let them feel free to come to us and talk about what they needed from us, but also what they were doing on a regular basis.
Right, and then everybody who's watching gets a little dose of what this is too. So if you invite in the Open Space Committee and they talk about what they've been working on, it's not just us who gets to connect with that, but then everyone else, because like those meetings aren't recorded.
I mean, and for that matter, the Sewer Commission. I mean, they don't need a liaison on a regular basis, but if they can come in when they think they've got something coming up, as opposed to the budget hearing, which is another public opportunity, if we try to set it up that's not financially focused but operationally focused, that they come and talk to us, not that we're demanding an audience, or maybe we go to one of their televised meetings.
Yeah, right now, kind of the liaison position, the most we get out of it is a report every once in a while when something's happening, but at the same time, you're kind of playing telephone, too. You're getting what was important to that one person. You're not getting something from the actual board and what they're concerned with.
Yeah, and I worry about that sometimes, because you're getting a small encapsulation, and we're doing it on TV. And perhaps it would be interpreted different from somebody who was at the whole meeting, and I would rather encourage people to go to a whole meeting. If there was an agenda item that was like real important to them.
I think asking appointed boards and elected boards to come report to us is putting one more thing on their plates.
Well, I'm suggesting that we take the appointed boards aside and say, let's address that as part of our goal to improve our...
Okay, so we're just talking about elected boards now.
The elected boards are different, at least to me, because they are their own board. It's not... We have no control over them, no responsibility to oversee them. We support or don't support things they put forward at town meeting, but on a day-to-day basis, we kind of should be staying out of their business unless they want help with something. Then absolutely, sure, we should.
I don't see the liaison as being in their business. I mean, I believe the school department is responsible for 70% of the town's budget. It's huge.
But they're run by an elected board.
Yes.
That's not us.
Yes, I understand that. But I think that we need to be apprised of what's happening on the school board.
And that's why I believe they have public meetings and TV and...
When it comes to other elected boards, I don't think we need to be any more apprised than any other citizen in town, because we're just another citizen. They're the elected board when it comes to their business. That's my personal view of that one.
Well, I disagree.
I'm not sure of my formal opinion, but I will say the one thing I like about liaisons from the perspective of having been in the audience is committee reports can be a nice, informative part of the meeting. We would altogether basically lose that when people go down the line and there was lots of collective input. But maybe we could call it something else. I mean, people could we all will still be at a lot of different things and can still share what we...
So I think what part of the struggle that I'm hearing is how do we determine what's important to come back here from any of the elected meetings. So planning board, they are going to have another hearing on the solar property on Northfield Road as a result of the settlement that went on in the court. So I wouldn't expect any of us to go there and report back on that entire hearing. It would be good to say there's going to be a hearing. The question becomes, are we going to require that for every single hearing that goes on? How do we do that?
And using that example, I think when I saw that, I said I want to go to that. But I don't think I go in any capacity, any formal capacity. I go as a citizen who cares about it.
Yeah. And at that point, you're just reading off their agenda items and calendar. It doesn't...
So one of the things, and I think we should not make a decision tonight, but, and I'm not going to say the website's going to solve everything, but the new website will allow people to subscribe to a particular committee, so you can get notified on the agenda, notified on the minutes, and other things like that. So you know, I want to follow the park department because I want to follow what's going on with the skateboard. So that'll be something that we will be able to do with the new website, and that may change how we think we need to report on the liaison. So,
but anybody can do that. It's not just us.
Right. But I think that what that does, though, is that allows for the communication process that we want to have here, maybe there, and then that actually may make the liaison process easier, and it changes from a liaison to an interest, saying, based on the notifications I've been getting from the website, here are the following things coming on in the planning board, here's the things that are coming up on the school committee, here's what the school committee is going to be voting on next week. So it may change how we report out. Actually may make it easier not having to attend all the meetings either. So the other thing that I would say future goals would be trying to eventually have a bylaw requiring every town committee be televised for every meeting. And I recognize that that's a capacity issue and other things like that, but all of our meetings are televised, including our workshops. That makes a big difference. It makes a difference with the school committee ones, the sewer ones that are, the conservation are all televised now. The planning boards are all televised.
Conservation's not all televised.
Every other meeting. Every other meeting, right, every other meeting, just like the sewer. So you've got some benefit for people to learn. It's a recruitment process. So I think the big struggle I see is filtering the information at a committee coming back is different than a liaison representing the selectmen. So I've had that struggle when I've gone to a committee and I've had an opinion. Do I express the opinion of what went on versus express the facts? I think we need to have continuing discussion on this.
So we'll just attend meetings as rogue agents.
Right, rogue agent.
Rogue.
Rogue.
Do we need to do anything more about that, or?
I'd be interested to see how we come up with discussions on the appointed.
Okay.
Because that will inform
Fair enough.
what things we may want to do with elected.
Just as a follow-up to the one, it's not another liaison, but the MPO thing. We did get a letter back from MPO, and I am going to represent us, but I'm allowed to have a designee. I'm the voting member, but I'm allowed to have a designee go, and I think even vote, and from what I've heard.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to work with the town manager and find out who the best designee should be, but I think it should be somebody that, it's a daytime meeting, it should be somebody that's in the town, whether it's DPW or town manager or
Exactly.
planning. Right.
Lancaster, it's the planner,
Like you don't have enough to do.
And some other towns, it's the DPW. I mean, I think they mentioned to me that Paula was the only member of the BOS who attended,
But given that, I'm going to go to the one in
September?
Actually, I'm going to this one. I'm not official till the next one, but I'm going to this one. Because anybody can go. So it's in a couple of weeks, next week or whatever. And I think we have all the other assignments for MRPC and Stormwater and all those other things done, so we're set on that one. And we'll see how the appointed committees work and the communication with them. And if that informs elected, we'll come back and revisit that. So I can take that off the agenda for now. Okay. Minutes. We have minutes for the 17th and the 24th. One thing I need to note is it's come to my attention that, and in fact there's an article, it's not specifically on minutes, it's on performance reviews, but the SJC has given a decision on open meeting law compliance that a communication from a board member to all the other board members, if it includes an opinion, is considered a violation of open meeting law. So what I believe we should do is if you've seen the minutes and want to question or amend them, we have to do that here at open session as opposed to, unless you're doing just a typo or it says I was at the meeting and I wasn't. If you're making a comment that I really believe we said this and not that, I think we should hold that and have that as a discussion when we pass the minutes down.
And not just send them to Elaine.
Not just send them to Elaine and have her revise the minutes.
Well, I recently sent something to Elaine. I think I had mentioned that I recommended that town council weigh in on something, and at the meeting you had said yes we will, and in the minutes it said that Mrs. Luck made a recommendation that the town council look into something, but there was nothing in the minutes that said that confirmed yep we will. So I don't really consider that.
I don't know how to. Yeah, but I don't know how to split hairs.
Technically, we should be doing minute changes here as opposed to.
Okay.
That would be the simplest way to do it. So just
doesn't sound simple, but.
Right. Well, it's consistent with the open meeting law is what I'm saying.
Right. And what we'll do is, if you have an issue when we pass them down, we'll take the minute it takes. And even in this article, it says that they understand it's going to be less efficient, but it supports.
That's the open meeting law.
Exactly. Efficiency isn't its main goal.
No.
Nor is government.
That's true.
Government is intended to be efficient.
We also have warrants.
Just one.
Okay. And as we sign the warrants, I need to announce that. Give me a minute. At our July 24th meeting, following the meeting, because I forgot to do it on television, we signed warrants for payroll in the amount of $620,581.64, payroll deductions in the amount of $665,935.38, and accounts payable in the amount of $192,219.63. And that is legal because we can come in and sign them when we don't have meetings, but I forgot to do it on air. We now have water in the amount of $7,252.80. the same one. Accounts payable in the amount of $561,905.53. That it? Payroll for $640,040.95. And accounts payable in the amount of $336,518 and 1 cent.
1 cent.
Alrighty.
That was a thank you letter for Robert Cadle.
This is a thank you letter for Robert Cadle's service on the ZBA. Action file.
Sorry.
Action file issues. I just have one. It was mentioned tonight the Stillman's Fair. I'm not going to be attending the Stillman's Fair, so if anybody on the board wants to do they usually give the selectmen a table. You're welcome to it. I'll show you where the things are. Any other action file issues?
Yes, I have a couple. I would like to suggest that we come up with a wish list, projects list, add this to an agenda. I'd like to see the BOS schedule a discussion on things we'd like to see done, but realize we don't have the funds for. Discuss, put out in a public survey, then have a list. We will be grant ready. When and if opportunity arises, then we'll have some suggestions that we've already discussed, and can put them forward as grants. Tonight, Ms. Jewell mentioned better parking at the town beach. I think that's way up there on a wish list. It's ridiculous. I actually think there should be shade at the town beach. Oh my God, those people must bake there. Some sort of a gazebo. I mean, those are just a couple of thoughts I have, and they're just as valid as some of the things that have been put forward by the town manager very recently. So I would like us to have a discussion, get citizen input, and come up with a list of things that are ready if we have the opportunity.
Okay.
Just a note, the beach parking, that is a project included in the Complete Streets Prioritization Plan.
Great.
I think it was item number 3 in terms of how it came out strategically in terms of need and whatnot.
And I also I know that we got a letter from some Carolyn and John Pallow about the abandoned Jeep left they're looking at for 8 years. Is there any help for them in that?
There was a follow-up letter today.
There was.
Everybody?
You should have received, if you were on the original email.
I don't think I got a follow-up email.
I didn't.
There was one that came in
sent
this
something out.
end of the day today.
Just end of the day today.
Yeah, well, I'm taking a shower at the end of the day, getting ready to come.
He did contact them today, went to their house, spoke with the wife of the owner of the Jeep, and they said they'd move it within 14 days.
Great.
Katie, this isn't our list, it's somebody else's list, but Paul is still on there and you're not. So
There we go.
But somebody, we were just CCs on correspondence between...
I got some of it, and I
Okay.
did get the mailing. Yeah. But thank you, that could be, whatever that is, could be updated.
I'll send you a copy of it.
Thank you.
Any other action file issues? Okay. We're going to put off the fourth quarter financial report until the 21st, when the treasurer will be with us. So are there any committee or department reports?
The Stormwater Task Force met on August 2nd. We reviewed the Notice of Intent, NOI, for the new Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, MS4, report permit. We'll have a final review and vote on September 13th, but we'll set up a review with the town manager and the land use director, who the town manager will need to sign it, and we'd like to review it with the BOS, who obviously will need to authorize that signature. Hopefully we can do this very soon.
I attended my first MRPC meeting, and that's all I have to say. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay. Our upcoming schedule, next week we are going to do a workshop on earth removal. At least we're going to do some work on that, best we can. The suggestion is that we may address the other policy discussions that you had at the meeting and deferred. You know, Selectmen Policy Manual, you went through the ones that we felt comfortable with, but you deferred a couple. We're going to shoot to do that, not in a workshop session, but in a normal session. We'll make an agenda item on the 21st of August or September 4th. So we'll get going on that. Is there any public comment from the public? Any public comment from the board?
Sure. The second thing I public commented about also just dropped. So I just wanted to ask about the item of the land conveyance, and in regards to whether or not that would be done, I would prefer that be done in open session. And I did speak to the Division of Open Government, Open Meeting Law, and we really have to define why we're conducting that in executive session, and Purpose 6 isn't enough. It has to go a step further to prove that there's a detriment in regards to just doing it in open meeting. I feel like it's a pretty big deal to convey land, and I would feel more comfortable up ahead of scheduling it to consider doing it as an open meeting item. And we may actually have to if we can't prove that there's a detriment associated with it.
Yeah, you would think you'd have to.
I would say we would have that discussion at the time we make the motion. So whatever the motion is, whether we're going to go into it or not, we should have that discussion of whether we should be going into executive session. Any motion to go into executive session is always debatable and discussable. So.
And can we discuss then as a board why we wouldn't conduct an item? I mean, in terms of open government, we should prefer that over behind closed doors. I mean, I did a lot of research on it. We may not be in compliance.
I think generally going into executive session, there's reasons why we do it, and I think each time you do it, you should be discussing it. Obviously, negotiation of contracts is an easy one. Real estate deals is an important one during the negotiation process, so things don't get out.
If there's a detriment, and that usually is applied to buying, and it rarely involves other scenarios in which the detriment, I think, is actually to the residents of the town who can't participate and/or give input.
I would say that would be something I'd be willing to discuss at the time of the motion.
Okay.
That would be next week's meeting.
Okay.
Next week's meeting would be what?
We're going into executive session on land conveyance.
There'll be a motion to go into executive session, and that'll be the time to discuss that. Any other public comment from the board?
Make a motion we adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.